Hello, I'm Alexa, and I'm 33 years old. Ever since I was a kid, I've always dreamed of building my own house. The idea of designing and planning out the place I would call home excited me like nothing else. It was a dream I shared with my amazing husband, Oliver. I met Oliver about 14 years ago. After 5 wonderful years of dating, we got married. Our relationship has been filled with love and happiness. We looked forward to owning our own house one day. We constantly spoke about what it would look like, planning the house down to its tiniest details and imagining living in that house. We slowly worked our way towards our dream over the years we were together. Oliver has been my biggest supporter, encouraging me every step of the way. One of my favorite things about Oliver was how he always stood up for me, especially against his parents, Josie and Donald, who didn't seem to like me very much. They enjoyed putting me down and making my life harder. Whenever they needed something, they would force me to do it for them, but then they would criticize my efforts or say they didn't want it anymore. It was so frustrating. To make matters worse, they only came over to my place on my work days. You see, I was fortunate enough to be able to work from home. However, Josie and Donald didn't think I was actually working. They would never listen to me, and I didn't like constantly complaining to Oliver, so I didn't tell him a lot. Whenever they visited me, I would try to tell them to leave me alone, but they would say that they were there to spend time with their precious daughter-in-law. I wouldn't have minded if they just sat around in my house while they let me work, but obviously that would not satisfy them. They would call me while I was busy working on something important or when I was in meetings so that I could do some mundane tasks for them. I would usually be so focused on work that I would just do their task and then head back to my room. However, when their visits became a daily thing, I couldn't keep doing it, especially since it had begun to affect my work ethic. I finally decided to tell Oliver about everything that had been happening with his parents. He was rightfully angry at how they were not only actively disregarding my work, but also treating me like I was their servant. He promised me that he would talk to them and make them stop bothering me. I was super grateful for Oliver. I hated confrontation, especially when it involved family. I was glad that Oliver made sure that I was treated properly, because I usually just dealt with whatever hand I'd been dealt. Oliver and I went over to his parents' house the next day, where he bravely confronted them. "Oh, hi, sweetheart. Why did you come here?" Josie asked. "Because I need to talk to you guys about something important," Oliver replied. "Oh, why is Alexa here?" Donald added. "I brought Alexa with me because we need to address the way you've been treating her." "What do you mean?" "We just want to spend time with her. There's no harm in that," Josie insisted. "Mom, it's not about spending time with her. You've been disregarding her work and treating her like a servant. That's not fair," Oliver explained. "Come on. It's all in good fun. We didn't mean any harm," Donald responded. "It's not fun for Alexa when it affects her work and well-being. From now on, you need to respect her work hours. You can see her after work or on weekends," Oliver stated firmly. "Fine, if that's what it takes," Josie reluctantly agreed. "Okay, we'll back off, but we didn't think it was such a big deal," Donald said defensively. "It is a big deal to Alexa, and that's what matters. If you can't respect her boundaries, you might lose contact with both of us. Please understand and change your behavior," Oliver concluded. For a while, I had some peace from their constant disruptions. I was able to fully focus on work and didn't have to constantly be on edge, worrying that they would enter my room during a meeting or demand things from me. After Oliver stood up to his parents, I thought their intrusive visits were finally over. Just as we were getting used to the peace, soon enough, they started coming over even more often. It became really frustrating. I felt like Oliver had already done his best, and telling him to deal with it again would never teach them anything or make them stop. So, I decided to stand my ground. I told them that I needed to work. I invited them inside and told them not to disturb me. I went into my room and locked the door to avoid any tantrums that they might throw. Honestly, my heart raced so fast the first time I did that. They actually didn't even disturb me once it was time for me to log off from work. I would go down only to see the house empty. While I found it amazing, all of his parents didn't like the fact that I was ignoring them at all. "Oliver, we can't believe how disrespectful your wife is acting. She should be spending more time with us, not always holed up in her room." "Yeah, we're family after all. She owes us that much." "You've got it all wrong. Alexa is not being disrespectful. She's dedicated to her work because we need to be financially stable." "But can't you take some time off for family? We miss spending time with her." "Of course she values family time, but she also has her career, and it's important to her. You might not know this, but she makes double my salary, and we mostly rely on her income." "Really? Double your salary?" "Yes, and that's why I won't tolerate any more interruptions. Alexa's work is important, and if you can't respect that, I will make you guys pay for whatever time you made Alexa waste on you." "You can't do that." "Well, you're parents. You don't want to try me. We have goals we want to achieve, and I will make you pay for it if you come our way." "Fine, whatever. We won't disturb you anymore." Surprisingly, they stopped coming over so often. It was a turning point. We finally got the freedom we had been dreaming of for a while. Oliver and I worked hard and saved up money to build our dream house. I was super excited and focused on designing, while Oliver handled the technical stuff. Finally, my lifelong dream was coming true. But then, at dinner one night, Josie and Donald decided to tell us something shocking. "We expect 2 more rooms in your new house because we are going to live with the 2 of you." "Excuse me? Who gave you the right to make the decision without even asking us?" "We decided to do it so that you could no longer ignore us." "This is completely disrespectful. You can't just barge into our lives like this." "We've been tolerating your disrespectfulness for months now, Oliver. It's time you start showing us some respect as your parents." "Respect is a two-way street. We deserve the same respect from you. We won't allow you to control our lives like this. It's not fair to us. We are your parents, and we have a right to be with you." "Yes, you have a right to be a part of our lives, but you can't just impose yourselves on us without our consent." "We're not backing down. We want to be with you, and that's final." I knew Oliver was about to explode, so I held his arm to calm him. I forced a smile and reluctantly said I would build the extra rooms. They smirked, thinking they won. Inside, I felt torn, but I had a plan to show them they can't take over our lives. I was determined to stand up for my happiness and our future together. After that dinner, Oliver asked me why I had promised his parents to build more rooms for them. I couldn't stand their entitlement anymore. I had a plan to show them they couldn't just intrude in our lives. "And what was your plan?" "Well, I couldn't just build 2 more rooms, so I decided to build 4 more rooms instead." "4 more rooms? Have you hit your head or something?" "No, I'm serious. We have enough money to add another story to the house. If they think it's okay to stay with us, then my parents should be able to stay too." "Oh, I see where you're going with this now. That's actually pretty clever." "I thought it would be a perfect way to make them understand our boundaries." "You're amazing, you know that? I never would have thought of that." "Well, that's why you have me. Together we can handle anything that comes our way." "That's for sure." Now let me tell you about my parents. They were what society called hippies, free-spirited and open about everything. Oliver's parents couldn't stand them, and whenever there was a family event, They would ignore my parents like they were running from a fire. I knew that if my parents lived with his parents, they would want to move out as quickly as possible. The thought of putting Oliver's parents in their place amused him, and he laughed, fully on board with my plan. It was a perfect way to show them that they couldn't just intrude on our lives without any consequences. I was determined to stand up for ourselves and make sure we could finally enjoy the peace and happiness we deserved in our new home. As our house slowly took shape over the next year, I decided to play a trick on Oliver's parents, Josie and Donald. I told my parents about how Oliver's parents were really interested in the spiritual world recently, knowing it would make my parents curious. They got excited that Oliver's parents were interested. You know what I found out the other day from Josie? What, dear? She told me that she and Donald had begun looking into the spiritual world. She kept talking about how fascinating it all was. She was talking about it for a while, you know? It made me think of you guys. Oh, baby. That's super cool. Though I didn't think that Donald or Josie would ever be spiritual people, but that's awesome. Yeah, I'll probably have to hear a lot more about it, though. What do you mean? Well, they'll be staying with us in our new house once it's ready. They'll be staying with you. That's wonderful. We could easily meet them and introduce them to our community. I'm glad you're excited about it, because there are extra rooms. You can stay with us and get to know them better. Really? That's fantastic news. We'd love to stay with you and be a part of this experience. Great! We can make all the arrangements once the house is ready. It's going to be an interesting time, and I think you'll get along well. We can't wait to welcome all of his parents and show them around. Thank you for inviting us, dear. You're welcome, Mum and Dad. It'll be a memorable time for all of us. Let's keep this as a surprise for Oliver's parents until they move in. But I didn't tell Josie and Donald about this. We just invited them to move in once the house was done. When Oliver's parents arrived, they seemed smug. Little did they know Oliver and I had prepared contracts for them. The contracts had strict rules, like staying early on the first floor for maintenance or leaving the house. Josie and Donald signed without reading the fine prints. I showed them their rooms on the first floor, but I made sure my parents didn't arrive at the same time. I wanted to keep them apart for now and see how things played out. It was my way of showing Josie and Donald that they couldn't just come into our lives without consequences. I wanted peace and happiness in our new home, and this was my plan to make sure of it. After a peaceful camping trip, we returned home to find Oliver's parents upset that I invited my parents to live with us. They yelled at me for inviting my parents to live next to them. How dare you invite your parents to live with us? We had to endure all their weirdness for the past week, and we couldn't even complain to you and Oliver. What do you mean by weirdness? They played the tambourine, rang bells, and chanted marches at 2 a.m., We couldn't sleep properly the entire week. Well, that's part of their spiritual practices. It shouldn't be a problem. They also burnt herbal incense and sage, making our eyes water and causing us to sneeze and wheeze. Why didn't you ask them to compromise? We tried, but they threw a tantrum and accused us of being intolerant. You chose to stay here knowing their lifestyle. You have to face the consequences. Exactly. And if you can't tolerate Alex's parents and respect the contract, you're free to leave. Oh, now you're just selfish, Alexa. You only care about the contract because it benefits you. That's not true. You're the ones breaching the contract by confronting us downstairs. We clearly stated you're not allowed to leave the upper floor under any circumstances. Oliver opened a drawer and took out the contract, slamming it in front of them. If you had read it seriously, you'd know your actions are against the agreement. You have a choice. Either go back upstairs and tolerate Alex's parents, or leave our house and our lives forever. You're being manipulated by Alexa to embarrass and endanger us. No. I see how badly you're treating Alexa. I won't let the mother of my child go through this difficulty." They looked shocked when Oliver mentioned that I was the mother of his child. When they asked if I was pregnant, I nodded. Their faces lit up with joy. They congratulated and hugged me. I was caught very off guard. One minute we were arguing and the next we were hugging. I didn't know how to feel, and honestly, I didn't care enough to actually figure it out. I just wanted them out of the house. Apparently, they wanted the same thing, but not for them. They wanted my parents out even more. Now, I wanted to agitate Josie and Donald even more, so I said something, even though I would absolutely not be following through with that. "Alexa, please ask your parents to leave so we can be part of our grandchild's life in peace and support you during your pregnancy. Our child will follow the same lifestyle as my parents, and I believe they'll benefit from their presence." "What? You can't be serious." "I am. It's important for our child to be raised in an environment that respects our beliefs." "Well, if you don't make them leave, we'll remove you, Oliver, and the child from our will." "That's your choice. But you should know that we know all about your financial struggles. It would be a lot smarter for you to use your assets to support yourselves." "You can't talk to us like that." "Yes, I can. You're standing in our house, and we get to speak to you however we want. We need you to leave. That's it. No more discussions." Enough was enough. So we served Oliver's parents an eviction notice, giving them 15 days to leave. They tried to convince us to let them stay, but I knew better. I reminded them that legal fights would cost more and that leaving was best for them. Politely, we escorted them out, and they left feeling defeated. Later, my parents also moved out because their plan to connect with Oliver's parents didn't work. I was sad, but I knew it was for the best. With both sets of parents gone, Oliver and I finally had the peace we deserved. We enjoyed being at home without interruptions or bullying from Oliver's parents. It felt great to have our space back. Over time, Oliver's parents tried to reach out, but the damage was done. We stood strong, knowing our choice was right for our family. As our child grew inside me, we created a happy home. We prepared the nursery together and waited for our little one. Oliver was a great partner, supporting me, and our love grew stronger through the challenges. We learned important lessons, setting boundaries and standing up for ourselves. Our home became a safe place to be ourselves. Oliver and I cherished peaceful moments, cooking, reading, and walking, without our parents around. We focused on our family life, which taught us to protect our happiness and well-being. We didn't let anyone control us, and we made a loving haven for our family. Each day, our bond grew, and we knew together we could face anything. Sure,